2025 was a fun year of kickboxing, but not without its flaws. Just think of Glory's hugely convoluted heavyweight tournament, a switch in leadership in K-1, Takeru's loss by knockout, and Rico Verhoeven's departure from Glory. But at the same time, we've had some incredible fights, like Mory Kromah knocking out Bahram Rajabzadeh, an incredible K-1 World Max tournament, the return of Antonio Plazibat, Yuki Yoza's immaculate aura. My name is Kimball, I'm the Kickboxing Nerd, and welcome to the Best of 2025 in Kickboxing Awardshow. Let's go! Today we're gonna take a look back at last year's greatest fights and best moments. In this year's award categories, we've got some familiar ones, of course, like Fighter of the Year, Knockout of the Year, but also some new ones. So let's go through this year's categories. Before I start, I want to point out some criteria because to prevent people getting mad, oh my god! Also, to make things a little bit more digestible, I only focus on the 4 biggest organizations in kickboxing. So, we gotta talk about Glory, we gotta talk about Rise, we've got to talk about K-1 and one championship. And of course, in exceptional cases, I'll definitely add other organizations as well. But anyway, I also want to clarify how I judge each category. So the first one, upset of the year. For me, it has to be a surprising win, something that is very unexpected. The second category is a new one, the weirdest and craziest moment of the year. Something really out of the norm needs to happen. Third one, knockout of the year. Knockouts can be beautiful, but for me it's also important that it has to be a statement knockout. It has to mean something. There has to be some kind of story behind the knockout for me to make it the knockout of the year. Fourth one, a new one, the best haircut in the game. Because we've seen some pretty cool but crazy haircuts as well. It's one thing to act cool, but to look cool, that requires some attention. And some fighters know how to sell themselves well. Fifth category, Breakout Fighter of the Year. It's important for me that the winner of this category has to be someone that is a breakout fighter in the eye of the general combat sports audience, because real ones already know who these guys are. Sixth one, best event of the year. Preferably all, but at least most fights have to be awesome. There has to be a great mix between knockouts and surprises. Seventh, best organization of 2025. For this category, it's important to, have great events, average all in one year. They gotta have a great structure. It should be easy to follow, and that's not always been the case in kickboxing. So this is a category that for me is important to, see what is the state of the game right now. Eighth one, best fight of 2025. It shouldn't be just a match. It has to be impactful. It's gotta have some impact on the division, but as well as kickboxing as a whole. And it should at least take 2 rounds, because otherwise it's only eligible for a knockout. And the 9th and last category, best fighter of 2025. The winner of this category should be one of the best, and preferably with a winning streak. But the thing is, it's not just about winning. Also, the competition has to be of high level. So it's very important who you've beaten, how you've beaten the person, what kind of impact does it have on the division, and what kind of impact does it have on the zeitgeist. And that's what makes this category quite difficult to score. Alright, let's start with the award show. Let's go! In the first category, we have upset of the year. We had some great fights last year, but some of those fights, they surprised us all. And man, did 2025 surprise us. The first nominee is Riku defeating Mohamed Boutassa by majority decision during K-1 World Max 2025 in February in Tokyo. Boutassa became a free agent, and at that moment when K-1 signed Boutassa, a lot of people were very hyped because he's one of the biggest talents at 70 kg. So we all expected him to make a big splash on the scene, but nothing could be further from the truth, because he lost from Riku, and ever since we haven't seen a lot from Boutassa anymore, which is a shame because he's still a talent. The second nominee is Masaaki Noiri defeating Tawanchai by knockout during 173 in Japan back in March. So why I consider this an upset is because while Noiri was one of the best kickboxers ever at 65 kg, when he made the transition to one championship at 70 kg, he lost 2 fights in a row. One by Sidichai, who is already a veteran of the sport, and the second one by Liu Mengyang, was relatively new on the scene. So when he lost 2 times, a lot of people were counting him out against Tawanchai. But when he knocked him out, people were ecstatic and were happy to see Nori back winning. And I was ecstatic. I was screaming at the screen. The third nominee is Nico Horta Big Sexy knocking out Rada Opacic by a overhand during Glory 99 during the last heavyweight standing qualification matches in April. You know, Big Sexy has never been known for being a knockout fighter, while Rada Opacic has been known for a knockout fighter. And the thing is, he's been regarded as one of the biggest heavyweight talents, you know, in the last couple of years, and unfortunately he didn't perform. And with this knockout, Big Sexy made a big name of himself. Big Sexy went on to qualify for the last heavyweight standing. The next nominee is quite a big one because Soufiane Laidouni from France defeated Levi Rigters by unanimous decision during Glory 104 to qualify himself for the Glory last heavyweight standing tournament. That was quite a big upset because Levi Rigters came off a double knockout victory, one over Jamal Ben Sadiq and the other one over Nazipov. So when Laidouni came into this fight, all eyes were on Levi, and Laidouni hasn't been regarded as the best heavyweight at this moment, but he has been shown a lot of progress, and when he fought against Levi Rigters, he actually knocked Levi down. That was such a surprise because most people expected Levi to defeat Laidouni and go on to the tournament final. This was a huge surprise. The next nominee is also quite a big surprise because we have Samet Agdeve. Fuck man, I do not know how to pronounce his name, but let's just say Samet. He defeated Roman Kriklia by unanimous decision during One Fight Night 37, which is an incredible feat since a lot of people considered Kriklia as the potential biggest threat to Rico Verhoeven's belt. Of course, Kriklia was exclusively signed with one championship, Rico Verhoeven exclusively signed with Glory, so the chance of them meeting each other, you know, to duke it out who is the best heavyweight of the planet never happened, but he got the opportunity and he defeated Roman Kriklia in one of the biggest upsets of the year by a strategy most people haven't tried against Roman Kriklia, by using calf kicks, and it worked. The next nominee for upset of the year is Jonas Salsika defeating Ouyang Feng during K-1 World Max 2025 in the Final 8 tournament. Ouyang Feng was considered as the heavy favorite to win the K-1 World Max tournament because he is the current 70 kg champion in K-1. Jonas Salsika, on the other hand, he's a relatively newcomer who won a qualification tournament and this way entered in the K-1 World Max tournament. The thing is, while the fight was not the most attractive one, it was a very big upset because Ouyang Feng had a 15-fight win streak, defeating Muzinski, defeating Verdonk, Wajima. He was on such a great streak that it's incredible that this streak got broken by someone who is relatively new. Another nominee for biggest upset of the year is Theodor Ristov defeating Glory champion Chico Quasi during Glory Collision 8. Chico Quasi defeated Theodor Ristov earlier in the year, so a lot of people thought, you know what, Chico Quasi is probably gonna steamwall over Theodor. But Theodor had a great strategy by dodging all the looping punches Chico threw. He was dodging punches, he was going under, he was blocking, he was doing the stick and move game. He had a perfect game plan for Chico and qualified for the final in the welterweight tournament in December. The last nominee for upset of the year is Nidal Bekiri defeating Big Sexy by knockout during Glory Collision 8. This was an interesting fight because Big Sexy didn't need to fight because he already qualified for the Glory last heavyweight standing tournament, which meant he could just sit it out and wait until the tournament, you know, go uninjured, go without a loss, but he wanted to prove himself as one of the better heavyweights on the roster. Unfortunately, he got knocked out by Bekiri, which is, you know, which is awesome story-wise, but at the same time, he still qualified for the tournament. So it does feel a little bit weird for him going to the tournament after this loss, but you know, Bekiri had the perfect game plan. He started to trash talk way before the fight happened, and he already said, let's make it a street fight, come to the center. And Big Sexy, I think it felt like he underestimated Bekiri a little bit, so he was, you know, trading punches, and then he got rocked, and in an instant it was all over. But who is the winner of upset of the year, upset of 2025? Jonas Salsika defeating Ouyang Feng during the K-1 World Max 2025 tournament. Congratulations. In the second category, we have weirdest, craziest moment of the year. The first fight we've got to talk about, of course, is Ilyas Hamouchi versus Mesut Selimovic during Glory 98 in Rotterdam. It was such a crazy fight because Ilyas Hamouchi was beating Selimovic in a pulp. He was really destroying him. He was knocking him down, but for some kind of reason, Hamouchi got wild. He threw away his mouthpiece. He was angry that the referee wasn't counting. The referee was telling him, go to the neutral corner because otherwise I won't won't be counting. That's a rule kickboxers know. But he didn't want to listen, he was mad, and eventually when the count came, and eventually after all the scuffle, all the craziness, Selimovic came with a crazy spinning back fist, knocking Hamushi down, and Hamushi was knocked out. It was a crazy fight. K-1 Grand Prix champion Remy Bonjasky even caught the mouthpiece of Hamushi. It was such a crazy fight. Next nominee for weirdest moment of the year, Sina Karimian versus Thomas Masny during Glory 99, the last heavyweight standing qualifying event. Meme king of kickboxing, Sina strikes again. When they were fighting, the referee was about to break them up by saying break, but the second after the referee said break, Sina came with a vicious right hand and knocked Masny down. Actually, he was knocked out, but because he threw the strike basically around the word break, the referee said, no, this is a fall, you gotta go back to the corner, and Masny gets some time to recover, and then we continue to fight. Sina has been in so many dirty matches before, so I kind of expected Sina to be in this category for this year. The third nominee of this category is Mory Kromah versus Bahram Rajabzadeh during Glory 100. This fight was crazy. Both guys were fighting for a spot in the Glory last heavyweight standing tournament. During their fight, Bahram, all of a sudden, he got crazy, like something got to him. It was almost like Bahram got possessed or something. Because when they were trading and, you know, they got in the clinch, the referee wanted to separate them, Bahram kept on fighting, which is just a violation of the rules. You can't do that. When Mory Kromah fell on the ground, he kneed him in the face, which you can't do that shit. You can't do that stuff. I was screaming like, Bahram, what the hell are you doing, man? I mean, he is one of the biggest talents right now. He's one of the biggest stars in Glory. You shouldn't do this, man. People don't want to see this. So Mory Kromah was very angry. The security had to come in the ring, separate the fighters. But man, it's such a shame. He just gave it away. In a cathartic moment, Mory Kromah came back with a flying knee knockout. In the most Remy Bonjasky way ever. It was an awesome knockout. You know, it gave me some flashbacks to, you know, Remy Bonjasky versus Badr Hari 2 back in 2008. Because if you know, you know. What a crazy fight. In another craziest moment of the year, we have Mory Kromah in a post-fight interview saying white ass against Rico Verhoeven. So I was like, alright, yeah, sure. A lot of people are hating on Kromah because he talks a lot. But the thing is, it's all about, you know, how to get fights and how to brand yourself as a star. And he's working hard to get under people's skin and at the same time also making sure that people don't forget about him.
My dick is bigger than yours. Alright, there we go.
And people don't. The next nominee for weirdest, craziest moment of the year again is Ilyas Hamuchi, this time against Sergey Brown during Glory 104. Sergey Brown came with his signature spinning heel kick, hit him in the face, got knocked down, and he got an 8 count. And he was protesting like, why are you counting? I didn't got knocked down. It was just really strange to see him, you know, protest. So he got disqualified and Brown got a win. In the last nominee for the craziest, weirdest moment of the year, we have the fight between Tariq Kababes and Bahram Rajabzadeh for the light heavyweight title during Glory 104 in Rotterdam, with Bahram Rajabzadeh retiring after claiming he won a clearly lost fight, because this was an awesome fight, but it was obviously an emotional reaction. Emotional damage! While he didn't win the fight, I still think he's one of the biggest talents and a lot of people want to see him returning. And I've said it before, kickboxing, combat sports, it's all about emotions. So in that sense, there's always a story to be told with these kind of moments. So who is the winner for weirdest, craziest moment of 2025? Of course, it's actually quite easy. Of course, it's the fight between Mory Kromah and Bahram Rajabzadeh during Glory 100. Such a crazy fight.
Stand-up fights, real knockout.
It's time to talk about KO of the year. This is one of my favorite categories. As mentioned, a knockout should be a statement knockout, not just a knockout, but it has to mean something. First nominee, Daryl Verdonk knocking out Yan Thong by spinning back fist in round 1 during the K-1 World Max 2025 February event in Tokyo. This was an awesome knockout, was over very quickly. The thing is, why this is an interesting knockout, not only because it's an awesome knockout, but also because Yan Thong is a legend in the game, and the way he defeated, how we dispatched him with ease was just insane. The second nominee of knockout of the year, we have to talk about Michael Boa-Peja knocking out Ibrahim Albouni by technical knockout with 4 knockdowns during Glory 98 Rotterdam. This is an interesting fight because this was the light heavyweight debut for Michael Boa-Peja, who's of course coming off the middleweight division. Every time he fights, it's a spectacle. He knows how to play the audience, but he also knows how to fight well. As mentioned, he's actually a middleweight, but in the meantime, waiting for the title shot, he was knocking light heavyweights out left and right. The third nominee of the knockout of the year, and of course we have to talk about Nico Horta Big Sexy defeating Rada Opasic by knockout. This was during Glory 99, the last heavyweight standing qualification event. Already talked about this, but this was a pretty incredible knockout because, you know, again, Rada Opasic being one of the biggest talents out there with a lot of hype surrounding him, and he getting stopped by knockout, yeah, that's a statement. And the next nominee for knockout of the year, the fight that I almost forgot happened in 2025 was the fight between Niki Holtzken and Sinsamut Clinmi. It was a rematch with Niki Holtzken avenging his knockout loss by knocking out Clinmi himself, which was awesome because he did a spinning hook kick and then he used a right cross and Sinsamut couldn't stand up anymore. This was during One Friday Fights 100. It was an awesome fight and deserving of a knockout of the year nominee. Damn, we got a lot of them to go because there were so many great knockouts happening in 2025. Tion de Vries defeating Mahmoud Satari by knockout via a straight left during K-1 Beyond in Yokohama, Japan. This is an interesting fight because this was the first step up in competition for Tion de Vries. He has been known for, you know, crushing cans, and Mahmoud has, you know, proved himself as a worthy fighter in the past before. So for Tion facing Mahmoud, we were very curious how he would fare, and he got knocked down pretty bad by Mahmoud. So a lot of people were like, oh my god. But then he stood up and he knocked him down, which was an awesome knockout. Big statement. And the next nominee, of course, we have Mory Kromah defeating Bahram Rajabzadeh by flying knee during Glory 100. We've talked about this fight before and the knockout was awesome. It was almost like an imitation of Remy Winjaski's knockouts back in the day during the K-1 heydays. It was an awesome knockout. Considering all the emotion that went to this fight, he put a big statement in the game. It was an awesome knockout. The next knockout nominee of the year is Yutaro Asahi knocking out Eduardo Catalin by a head kick. This was during Glory 102, aka Rise in Tokyo in August. It was an awesome knockout because this was a very difficult knockout to pull off because he was on his back foot, and when Eduardo came in with big punches, he just kicked up high pretty close in some kind of a counter high kick karate style. He knocked him out and he got face planted on the canvas, which was an awesome knockout. And that way he qualified himself for the next round of the Glory and Rise last featherweight standing tournament. By the way, it's so much more convoluted than the heavyweight one, but that's the story for another time. In the next nominee of knockout of the year, we got an awesome one, and we have to talk about Levi Rigters defeating Jamal Ben Sadiq by a spinning back kick knockout, which was picture perfect. An awesome kick, perfectly timed. This was during Glory 103. This was the qualification match for the second phase of the Glory Last Heavyweight Standing Tournament, and they did the draw based upon fan matchups. So fans could vote which matchups they wanted to see. Personally, while this fight I really wanted to see, I felt like this was a little bit too early for the tournament, but eventually this fight ended up happening and the knockout was awesome. It's truly one of the most beautiful spinning back kicks you'll ever see. We're almost there, but the next nominee for knockout of the year, we have Daryl Verdonk knocking out Stojan Koprivlensky during the K-1 World Max 2025 semi-final of the Final 8 tournament. Oh man, this was such an awesome fight and such an awesome knockout. Daryl Verdonk showed so much heart in this event. He just got off from a war with an extra round to, you know, advance to the semifinals. He eventually came into the semifinals against Stojan Koprivlensky, who is the K-1 World Max 2024 champion. So there was a lot of pressure riding on both fighters, but Verdonk, he knocked him down, and a few seconds later he knocked out Koprivlensky so hard. His punch just, man, I don't even know how to. This fight was so awesome because after he knocked him out, he was screaming. He knew that he was going to the final of this tournament after so many fought rounds, and also because he fought so many wars in the last couple of months, but also during this tournament itself. It was such a cathartic moment for him to knock out the former champion. Awesome, awesome knockout. The last nominee for knockout of the year, we have Fabian Laurido defeating Alexandru Valenciuc by knockout by a jumping switch front kick knockout, which was pretty fucking awesome. And this happened during Senshi 29. It was almost like some kind of Karate Kid crane kick. It was really a beautiful kick, something that you don't see a lot. But if we have to pick a winner, again, as mentioned, it has to be a statement knockout. There has to be a story behind it. It shouldn't be just the most beautiful knockout. It has to mean something. And for me, it was Daryl Verdonk knocking out the former K-1 World Max Champion. Daryl Verdonk, awesome stuff. Best haircut of the year. This is the best category. Am I right?
Am I right or am I right or am I right? Right.
The first nominee is Mehdi Aid El Haj, who always comes with a great haircut. This time at Glory 89, I was like, man, I wish kickboxers put more attention in doing your hair because his hair is always on point. Next nominee, of course, is Ryujin Nasukawa during Rise El Dorado. You know the character Trunks from Dragon Ball Z? Ryujin had basically that haircut, but instead of purple, it was orange with yellow, which was, you know, pretty cool. Third nominee, Christian Ristella during Glory 99 during the last heavyweight standing. I don't want to say is the most beautiful haircut, but he has like a arrow-shaped haircut. We gotta talk about that because how the hell do you create this arrow in your haircut? Just like the Avatar, but different, I guess. I don't know, but it's special. It's special. Fourth nominee, Takeru being ringside at Yuki Yoza's debut at One Championship. You know, Takeru has style. Takeru always looks cool. He's always doing a great job, even when he's ringside with another fighter. So, you know, yeah, he's putting in the work. In the next nominee, we have Ryujin Nasukawa during the Rise World Series Glory 102 event. With some kind of grayish kind of glow. You look like he had Ultra Instinct, which is pretty cool for those who know Dragon Ball. At the same event, we had Jin Mandukoro, his opponent. Very unique. It's something, but it's something. This event had so many great haircuts because Shiro was putting it on, man. He had some immaculate golden highlights in his perfect curls and carries like a champ. I mean, that's just awesome. That's awesome. During K-1 World Max, we had a champion who was inspired by Dragon Ball Super. Of course, we're talking about Jonas Salsika. And he had basically a fusion between a curly mullet and some kind of short mohawk inspired by Super Saiyan Blue Goku. And you know, again, it's something. He's not a man of a lot of words, but he did stand out. And that's not only because he's freaking tall. So who is the winner of best haircut of the year? Of course, that can only be one person. Takeru ringside during the debut fight of Yuki Yoza. On to the next category. Breakout Fighter of the Year. Finally, we can say that Tien de Vries is one of the breakout fighters of the year because he has been, you know, talked about a lot as one of the biggest talents around there. But last year, he finally broke through on the big stage of kickboxing, of course, during K1. Of course, he performed pretty well and, you know, a lot of people think he could be the next big star from the Netherlands. And the next nominee for Breakout Fighter of the Year, we have to talk about Remy Parra from France. He has been riding a huge streak. He has been fighting 7 times this year, 5 winning by knockout. He became a K1 tournament champion. Man, he's such a huge talent, only 24, and he's only starting to show how good he really is. Make sure to look out for this guy. The next fighter for Breakout Fighter of the Year is Samet Agdeve. Again, hard name to pronounce, but anyway, he won the Senshi 8-man Grand Prix tournament, which was pretty awesome. And after that, he got signed by One Championship, defeating longtime reigning champion Roman Kriklia, which is a huge upset. So it's insane what he has achieved in the last couple of months. It's really crazy. So he's really a heavyweight we have to look out for because I want to see him compete in Glory because One Championship doesn't really have a heavyweight division. I'm really wondering what One will do with Samet, but you know, if they want to build something, that would be awesome. If not, I really want to see him compete in Glory. The last nominee for Breakout Fighter of the Year is of course Jonas Salsika, who won the K1 World Max tournament, which is an interesting journey to watch because he came out of nothing. He fought in the qualifying tournament in Brazil, won the 8-man tournament, got qualified for the K1 World Max in Japan, and won the tournament as well by defeating Ouyang Feng. He defeated Daryl Verdonk, which is just such an impressive performance. It's one of the biggest surprises of the year in my opinion. So if I have to pick a winner, which I'm going to do, I would say Jonas Salsika wins the award for Breakout Fighter of the Year. In the next category, we have Event of the Year. And the first nominee for Event of the Year is K-1 Beyond in Yokohama, which was a pretty awesome card because, of course, we had Tien de Vries defeating Mahmoud Satari, Ouyang Feng defeating Daryl Verdonk, Remy Para winning an 8-man tournament. We also had Leona Pettis winning by knockout. There were so many crazy fights from top to bottom. It was an awesome event and it's definitely worth a rewatch. The second nominee for Event of the Year, we have to talk about Glory 100. This card was absolutely stacked. This, of course, was their anniversary event. If we look at the card, just talk about which fights there were. Sergey Maslobayev defeating Tariq Babis, Mory Kromah and Bahram Rajabzadeh with their crazy fight and flying knee knockout. The big rivalry between Donovan Wiese and Boapea. Patch Penomrun Kiatmokau knocking down Trindade multiple times. Rico Verhoeven, Tariq Osaro, Big Sexy, Milosh. Man, so many great fights. Burian Paposhi versus Denise Demirkapu. This was truly a stacked event, man. Of course, originally this event was supposed to be a 2-day event, but eventually, because ticket sales weren't that great, they mashed it up, fused it together to one big event. So awesome. I really enjoyed this event. Third nominee for Event of the Year is Rise World Series 2025/Glory 102 in Tokyo in August. This was an awesome event as well because in this event we had multiple qualification matches for the Glory and Rise last featherweight standing tournament. And of course we had a super awesome fight between Chad Collins and Kento Haraguchi. We're putting on a scrap for, yeah, it was such an awesome fight with Chad Collins getting knocked down in the first round, coming back strong. Ryujin Nasukawa fought on this event. Crazy event. It's definitely worth to rewatch this event again because there were so many great fights. The fourth and final nominee for Event of the Year is the K-1 World Max 2025 Final 8 tournament on 15th of November 2025 in Tokyo. Man, this was such a great event, top to bottom. If we have to talk about the K-1 World Max tournament itself, it was so awesome with guys like Ouyang Feng, Jonas Salsika, Daryl Verdonk, Stoyanko Privlensky. There was such a great mix of knockouts, great fights, surprises, and that's what you get with tournaments, especially at this weight class, 70 kg. It's just awesome, and I feel like they did a great job in finding new young talents and build upon those talents, and they're starting to create a base with guys like Verdonk, who is, you know, one of the most spectacular fighters in the game right now. But we also had some super fights, title fights like Ariel Machado defeating Royal Monarch, of course also Isai Ishii defeating Aito Kurokawa. Man, this was such a great event. I had so much fun watching this one. But which event do I consider as the very best? To be honest, I was in two minds in, you know, Glory 100 is such an awesome event, but the K-1 World Max tournament was awesome as well, and I can make a case for both of them. But you know, if I have to say which one I truly enjoyed the most, I think it is Glory 100 because it was such a huge card with every fight performing as we wanted it to, except for the main event, which is, you know, disappointing, but these things happen. But all the other fights were so great. So many fights in this event became a nominee in my award show. There were so many surprises, so many knockouts, so many great stories to be told from this point on. So for me, Glory 100 is the event of 2025. Congratulations. Organization of the Year. As mentioned in this award show, I only focus on the 4 biggest organizations at the moment. Of course, Glory, One, K-1, Rise. And for this particular category, I have to add Senshi as well because they have been doing a great job in hosting events. So let's go over every organization. First one, Glory. So with the successes of 2024, we hope that these successes would be carried over in 2025. They had a great deal with Videoland in the Netherlands, which had a lot of exposure to Dutch fans, which meant a lot of casual fans got the opportunity to see kickboxing on its highest level. But unfortunately, it couldn't be further from the truth because the Videoland deal fell through after one event. They departed from each other, so that meant they had to find a new broadcasting partner, and they found one in DAZN. It's a broadcasting partner that is internationally well known, but in the Netherlands, nobody really watches DAZN. I was kind of disappointed by that, but that's not the only thing because this is more like a logistics thing. I mean, if you look at the event itself, coming off 2024, we all expected Glory to go all in on light heavyweight because that was the most interesting division of 2024. Didn't happen. Glory decided to focus on heavyweight again, which came with a lot of complaints from fans saying that, why are are you not focusing on light heavyweight? That's the most entertaining division at this moment. Not only that, they decided to revamp the whole concept of a Grand Prix. They decided to do something new. Well, not necessarily new, but they rebranded it in the Glory Last Heavyweight Standing, which is basically still an 8-man tournament, but the difference is that the whole qualification process it's even hard to explain. It was so incredibly convoluted. There were multiple phases. If you wanted to qualify, there were 32 fighters. They had to fight on one night. When they won their fight, they went on to another round where they had a 4-man tournament. If you won the 4-man tournament, you were qualified for the tournament in December. Then there came another phase. In that phase, the losers from the last phase could be returning in phase 2 in addition to new fighters. So there will be another event with a 24-man event because there's also one wild card. During the run of this convoluted concept, they decided to change up the concept with 2 wildcards, which meant there were only 16 fighters entering in this phase. They also promised us that there would be more new fighters added in this phase, which ended up, well, they added like 3 fighters, but most of the fighters in phase 2 were losers from phase 1. A lot of people were like, we don't understand anymore how to explain to a normal person how this tournament works. It was unnecessarily difficult and unnecessarily complicated. The event would have been taking place in December, but because there were some injuries in the tournament got postponed to February 2026. Man, it's so hard to follow the tournament. Stuff like this should be kept stupid and simple just to make sure people understand. I think a great example of not postponing your event because of injuries is the K-1 World Max of 2025, because there were a lot of injuries. Some people had to pull out. Some were even stars in Japan, but they still went on with the event and it was hugely successful. And I will talk about that in a bit. But anyway, it was a tough year for Glory. They also had a Miami event, which was their return to the US, but that event looked so incredibly bad. The production was not on the level of other Glory events. I feel like this was an experiment with influencers, but I think even Glory was quite disappointed. And unfortunately, while they had amazing fights, even Glory 100, in my opinion, the best event of the year, they were truly incredible. But there were so many things that were not in Glory's favor, which makes it hard to truly say that Glory had a great year. This is a result of Glory focusing too much on the heavyweight division, too much on nostalgia, and not focusing on other divisions. Unfortunately, I'm not finished yet because their biggest star, Rico Verhoeven, their heavyweight champion, announced his departure from Glory, which is, I think, a big hit because he's the one who brought in the most of mainstream fans into kickboxing. Without Rico Verhoeven, I'm very curious which path Glory is going to take. But if I have to say what the biggest problem with Glory is that they have to focus a little bit more on consistency. And you know, and not only that, it's like if you want to build a brand, if you want to build kickboxing on a global stage, we need stars. We gotta put more focus on stars and not only focus on the heavyweight division. There are so many great fighters on other divisions as well. For example, Michael Boapea, he fought in middleweight, he fought in light heavyweight and is now going to heavyweight. He's a guy who keeps challenging people, he keeps challenging himself. And I feel there are so many great stories in all divisions to tell. And I think storytelling and great marketing is key to build up these stars. It's not just about 2 guys fighting each other. I need to care, you know, I need to care for the fight. But I'm very hopeful for 2026 because Glory CEO Marshall Zelazny has mentioned that he's seen the problems. He's seen that, you know, the focus on heavyweight has been a little bit too much probably, and now they want to focus on other divisions too. What they're going to change up as well is they're going to focus more on tournaments, less about title fights itself. So a tournament is more important. If you win the tournament, you become the champion. I think that's a great choice because kickboxing and tournaments are inexplicably linked with each other. All right. Let's go to Rise Japan. Of course, as mentioned, they have a collaboration with Glory. Last year, they had an awesome tournament, a Grand Prix with fighters from Rise, fighters from Glory. And this year is the same thing, except their concept has changed as well in a Glory and Rise last featherweight standing tournament. But the thing is, this one is also different compared to the heavyweight one, which makes it a lot more convoluted than it is necessary because instead of, you know, all fighters getting mixed up in a draw, they decided to do 2 brackets, well, 2 halves of the tournament. One half is the Glory part and the other one is the Rise part, which means the best fighter from Glory and the best fighter from Rise will end up fighting in the final. So there will be no cross-promotional fights in between, which is a shame because I think that was a lot of fun in last year's tournament. You know, so we're gonna see how this ends up because just like the heavyweight tournament, the final will be taking place in 2026, which is a shame. I personally prefer yearly tournaments, but it is what it is. If we look at Rise itself, well, like always, Rise is pretty consistent. They've been running showing a lot of events with fun fights, but to be honest, there were no major outliers. I feel like they did a great job, but there was nothing out of the norm. I mean, I gotta be honest, Rise World Series 2025 in August was also in collaboration with Glory. It was an awesome event. Of course, there were great fights and great title fights. For example, the fight between Chad Collins and Kento Haraguchi, that was awesome. Other than that, I feel like this year of Rise hasn't been as, not as spectacular as last year. So just like Glory, it hasn't been the same as 2024, but still entertaining though. K-1, yes, K-1. K-1 had a great year. Ever since the fall of FEG's K-1 hasn't been the same, which is not necessarily a bad thing in a sense. Like, there comes a time when things don't work out, you probably want to change up some things. And they had been focusing a lot on the Japanese competition for the last, I think, about 10 years. And they are slowly starting to focus a little bit more on international fighters, international exposure. So I was kind of surprised that Carlos Kikuta, K-1's producer, decided to step back. With multiple changes in leadership, eventually Genki Sudo, a former K-1 and MMA fighter, was brought in to become a K-1 producer. In his speech, he showed a lot of promise for the future of K-1. So this year of K-1 was awesome. They held 8 events. Of course, we have to talk about K-1 Beyond, which was awesome. An event with guys like Tien de Vries. Also, K-1 Dontaku with multiple K-1 World Max events, but of course the star of the show was the K-1 World Max 2025 final. Man, I had so much fun watching that event. In eyes of many fans, this is the event of the year, which is understandable. The level of this tournament was incredibly high. What K-1 did well is they had been focusing on finding new talent in 2024, and they've been grooming them. They've been giving them fights to show what they are really about and what kind of heart they have. And it worked out because this tournament was probably the best tournament of 2025. Also, the difference between Glory's heavyweight tournament is it was quite easy to follow. They had a qualification event and then they had a final. So it can get easier than that. In this tournament, there were so many upsets and there were so many storylines throughout the year. Of course, I have to mention Daryl Verdonk. He didn't end up winning the tournament, but he showed a lot of heart and he gained a lot of new fans. He is truly a potential star at 70 kg. And like last year, they organized events outside of Japan, which is cool as well. So more people get to be introduced with the K-1 brand outside of Japan. There are only 2 things that I'm like, that still hurt a little bit, and that's of course the international broadcasting. They have been able to broadcast to different countries outside of Japan, so that's a great start. But countries like the Netherlands are still not able to watch this without a VPN, so that's a shame. But I hope K-1 in 2026 comes back stronger with a broader broadcasting deal, so we all kickboxing fans can watch these events. They still lack a Japanese star at 70 kg because the tournament, while very interesting for international audiences, there was no Japanese star, which hurt the tournament a little bit. As a purist, of course, I still would watch and would enjoy that, but it would be better to have a star from the country that you're hosting the event in. So we'll see what happens next year. Let's talk about One Championship. One Championship in 2025 has been very fun. They have been doing a great job organizing events all over the year. Of course, mostly the events were focused on Muay Thai, but they had some kickboxing fights in between. I've mentioned this in last year's award show, but with One Championship, they are mostly in the super fight business because they do not have real divisions. Of course, they have divisions, but it's mostly focused on big fights, which is understandable in a sense that you want to earn money, so you put on these big fights. But most of their stars are not built from One Championship itself. They signed fighters from other organizations and they made sure these guys already were quite famous before they would be fighting in One Championship. Of course, this is a little bit of an oversimplification, but One Championship focused a lot more on Japan with 2 big events. Of course, I'm talking about one 172 headlined by Takeru and Rotang, and one 173 headlined by Masaaki Noiri and Superbon. Both were incredible events, but again, they were stacked with super fights. I mean, personally, I'd like to watch big events, but at the same time, I'd like to spread them out, these big fights, a little more even around the year. So I feel more of a necessity to watch other One events, because at the moment, most events are mostly focused on Muay Thai. And personally, I do not enjoy Muay Thai as much as I love kickboxing. So in that regard, in my opinion, it should be more spread out even. But both events were interesting if we do not count all MMA fights. Compared to 2024, One Championship has done a very good job in organizing cool kickboxing fights. Also, I have to mention they have some great talents for the next year. Of course, I have to talk about Samit David, who defeated Roman Kriklia. They have guys like Liu Mingyang. So the future looks very good. As mentioned, Senshi is nominated as well because they've done a great job of consistently putting on great events in Bulgaria. And of course, I have to mention this, but Tim Wheaton got the opportunity to give out an award at the Senshi Awardshow and didn't slap anyone in Toki Tamaru's name. So that's good. All jokes aside, but also the heavyweight Grand Prix with Samad Agdevi winning it was very entertaining. So they did a great job. But now it's time to announce the winner as Best Organization of 2025. And I think you might have guessed it a little bit in the words I've chosen for all organizations, but for me, K-1 did the best job in hosting consistently good shows with a big K-1 World Max 2025 final. So for me, that was the best organization. It was very easy to follow. It was just a overall fun experience to follow K-1. The next category, Fight of the Year. Man, I'm so happy 2025 delivered with so many great fights, but only one fight can win this award, but I will go through some of my favorites. The first one is Ouyang Feng defeating Daryl Verdunk by decision during K1 Beyond in Yokohama. The opening round was insane. In the opening seconds, Feng knocked down Daryl Verdunk. 1 minute later, he got knocked down as well, but another minute later, Daryl Verdunk knocked down Feng. So it was such a great explosive first round, and then the other 2 rounds were all about passion, heart, and a lot of violence, which was awesome to watch. This is a fight I really recommend watching back. The second nominee for Best Fight of the Year is Barian Baposhi defeating Denise Diberkapu by unanimous decision at Glory 100. This was a long-awaited fight, and damn, this delivered. This was an explosive back and forth with Baposhi ending up being the better at calf kicks, but after 2 calf kick knockdowns, Denise Diberkapu all of a sudden with a crazy surprising head kick, dropping Baposhi to the ground. The crowd was ecstatic. Eventually, Baposhi still won the fight, but this was, man, the crowd was on fire. The fight was amazing. You should be watching this back as well. Third nominee, Donovan Wiese defeats Michael Boapea for the middleweight title at Glory 100. This was a hotly awaited rematch between the 2 fighters, man. Boapea was calling out Wiese all year. He even stepped up in weight to light heavyweight, you know, to kill some time, to wait until he got that opportunity to get the rematch again. This was a technical fight. This was such a great fight to watch, a feast for the eyes. The crowd was into it. Man, it was such an awesome fight, and it was very close. Even the scores reflect that because it was a split decision. Unfortunately, after Wiese was announced as the winner, a lot of people in the arena were booing, which I always find very disrespectful because even though you are a fan of a certain fighter, I still feel like if someone enters the ring, you should give him a little bit more respect because there's blood, sweat, and tears going into training camp, and it's just, you gotta have some respect for people who fight for their lives, you know. And again, it was such a great fight. I can't be mad at the result because it was such a great fight. There has to be a third fight, regardless of the division. Chad Collins defeating Kento Haraguchi by split decision during Rise World Series 2025, aka Glory 102 in Tokyo, Japan. This was for the Rise 65 kg title, so there was a lot on the line, but this fight has been in the making for years now, and it finally ended up happening. When the first round started, I expected Chad Collins to be a little bit more aggressive, but all of a sudden, he got knocked down hard with a high kick by Kento Haraguchi. So I was like, man, it's over. What the hell? What happened, you know? But after that first round, Chad Collins, he was like, I'm not gonna lose the title. I'm the champion. I'm not gonna lose the title. And he put everything in this fight. He was gritty, making it a dirty street fight. His comeback was special. Insane performance by Chad Collins, also by Kento Haraguchi, but the way Chad Collins got back, man, it's inspiring. Truly inspiring for every kickboxer. Next nominee as Best Fight of the Year. Tariq Kababis defeating Bahram Rajabzadeh during Glory 104. This was a highly anticipated match between the champion, who is known for their forward pressure, and Bahram Rajabzadeh, the challenger, as someone who is extremely explosive and has knockout power in his hands. In the first round, a stiff jab dropped Kababis to the ground. So I was like, man, this could be all over within a round because we all know Bahram. If he smells blood, he's going for the kill. But it didn't end up happening because Kababis slowly took over the fight. Basically, round 2 until 5 were all about Kababis' relentless pressure and combination work. And the thing is, like, Bahram Rajabzadeh had some great moments as well, and I think he had an opportunity to win this fight, but he took so many hits in the face which were so unnecessary. He's got a lot of offense, but all those hits to the chin, you know, balanced it out, and eventually, end of the fight, Kababis just hit more and got hit less. Every hit on the face is a point for your opponent, so, you know, so this fight ended up going to Kababis, which is 100% deserved. Bahram just needs to block or dodge punches because he could be a champion, but he needs to work on that. While this fight was incredibly awesome, one of the best fights you'll ever see, I do feel that when the winner was announced, when Bahram announced his retirement from the sport because he didn't agree with the decision, I was like, come on, man, just take your loss and, you know, come back in the next fight, because he's such a talent. He doesn't need to say stuff like that. He's such a talent already. You don't even need to be a champion to be a star, and he's one of the big examples of that. Luckily, he announced he'll be coming back, so I'm happy for that. Last nominee for Fight of the Year. Isai defeated Aito Kurokawa by decision at 53 kilograms during the K-1 World Max Final tournament as a title fight. This was a great back and forth. Isai is so incredibly explosive. He even smiles when he hits you in the face, so he's, you know, a technical side to behold. Almost every punch he makes is like a power punch, and at that weight, that means something. It was a fun technical scrap with Kurokawa having some great moments as well. But if we have to pick a winner, I was really in doubt, like which one should I choose, because there were so many great fights, but I had to choose Takeru Kababas defeating Bahram Rajabzadeh during Glory 100. Congratulations. It's time for the last category in my award show. Of course, we're talking about Fighter of the Year. This is a category that a lot of people are looking forward to because there have been so many great fighters who will be, you know, eligible for being Fighter of the Year, but there's only one winner, so let's talk about nominees. First nominee, Mory Kromah, of course, became a star in one fight. Of course, we're talking about the fight versus Bahram Rajabzadeh. I've mentioned this many times before this video. He also qualified for the Glory Last Heavyweight Standing. He had a super fight with Christian Ristea. He fought at light heavyweight in the beginning of the year against Jem Caceres. The only thing is he lost that fight, which is a shame because, you know, if he didn't end up losing that fight, it would be a picture perfect year for Mory Kromah. But anyway, such a good year for this guy. He's truly someone who can shake up things a little bit in the heavyweight division. Milos Svetikanin. He performed so well this year that it's hard to not count him in the conversation for Best Fighter of the Year. He qualified himself for the Glory Last Heavyweight Standing, and then he decided to go into a light heavyweight tournament in the end of the year as well. So he fought a whopping 8 times in 2025. The only thing that doesn't work in his favor is his losses against Big Sexy Nico Horta and Michael Boapea. Because if he won both fights, in my opinion, it would be a no-brainer. But for now, he's still a nominee. We're gonna look at the other nominees. Next nominee, of course, Yuki Yoza. The man with aura. He made his debut in one championship, immediately dispatching his opponent with ease. He showed that he is a very complete fighter with a karate background. It's almost like he plays with his opponents, like it's just, you know, another meal for me. I'm hungry. Give it to me. The other 2 fights in one championship were against Pechanong and of course one of the biggest stars in one championship, Superleg. If we look at competition, I think we can all agree that Superleg is one of the biggest fighters at this weight class, and the way Yuki Yoza dismantled this guy is incredible. He did it with almost zero effort. He was having fun there. It's not a coincidence that a lot of people regard Yuki Yoza as one of the biggest stars at this moment. Of course, he comes off from K-1. The last couple of K-1 stars who crossed over from K-1 to one championship have lost their debut fights. But Yuki Yoza, he's like, I'm different and I'm here to stay. He's performing well with his crazy kicks and accuracy. It's a joy to watch him. The next nominee is Remy Para from France. He fights a lot in K1. He won 7 fights with 5 by knockout. He became the K1 60 kg 8-man tournament champion, which is a huge accomplishment. It's almost a no-brainer to say like Remy Para is the fighter of the year. Only the thing is we have to look at level of competition as well. And if we look at level of competition, I have to be honest, there is so much we still haven't seen from him. He's still growing as a fighter and I can't wait to see him next year in K1 as well. I think a lot of fans would say, man, I think Remy Para could be the fighter of the year. The last nominee for fighter of the year is Michael Boapea. Let's go! He had a great run in Glory this year. He made his debut in light heavyweight and he knocked his opponents out, which is an incredible performance. And later in the year, he won a 4-man light heavyweight tournament and he defeated Milos Svetikanin in the final, which also is an awesome accomplishment. The only thing is he lost to the middleweight champion Don van Wiese, who is incredibly technical, versatile, and one of the best pound for pound kickboxers out there. So it's not a shame that he lost against Wiese, but it's a loss we have to count very highly. Before I announce the winner of this category, we have to give a special shout out to Daryl Verdonk. He's got the warrior spirit. While he didn't end up having all the successes like some of the other guys I mentioned before, he still put on so many great fights. And I feel like if Glory had the 70 kg division, man, Daryl Verdun could have been a glory star, but I'm happy that he's now getting opportunities in K1 to show what he can do, and he's got that gritty fighting style. He never backs down, comes for the knockout. He's an awesome fighter. I can't wait to see what's happening for him next year, but I just had to mention him. So the winner for Fighter of the Year was a difficult choice to make, but if we look at the win streak, if we look at the level of competition, the way this winner dismantles his opponents, then there's only one guy I can truly say, and that's Yuki Yoza. He won all of his fights against the best of the best with ease, which is awesome. He's got the aura. A lot of people are big fans of him because he carries himself like a champ already. And he isn't even one championship champ. Doesn't matter. He was the K1 champion, but he will be champion in the future. He is the best kickboxer of this moment. Congratulations. In conclusion, while there have been so many ups and downs, kickboxing is still in a great state. The opportunities are immense. People tend to say that kickboxing is dead since the fall of FEG K1, but to be honest, there are so many opportunities to watch kickboxing these days. Look at all these promotions right now. Glory, Rise, One Championship, K1, Knockout, Infusion, Legend, Rings, Boost Cup, Shoot Boxing, Biome Combat, Senshi, KOK, Crush, Ryzen. There are so many opportunities. It's almost impossible to watch each and every fight. The fact that there are so many fights I still haven't seen says enough. I mean, I am the kickboxing nerd and I still can get to watch every fight, which is saying a lot about the state of kickboxing right now. There are so many opportunities, and I hope for 2026 the opportunities arise even more, because the more kickboxing there is, the more people will be watching kickboxing, and together we gotta spread this beautiful sport, because it truly is the best sport out there. The best combat sport out there. So this was my Best of 2025 award show. Before I let you guys go, I want to give a shout out to Giorgio Petrosyan, one of the biggest kickboxers, pound for pound best kickboxers out there. Probably the very best pound for pound kickboxer there has ever been. He's a legend. He's a two-time K1 World Max champion. He's a One Championship champion. He's a Glory champion. He is a Bellator kickboxing champion, if that means anything. But my point is, he retired, and he retired as one of the very, very best. And I think he deserves a spot in this video. So I wanted to point that out. If you don't know who he is, shame on you, but go check out his fights. Anyway, let me know, what did you think of the award show? What do you think of my nominees and winners? I can imagine that maybe you would have picked another choice, which is all fine. I mean, there have been so many great fights this year, so if you have another opinion, let me know down in the comments, because I would love to discuss with you guys, because again, it doesn't matter which fights you think are the best. There were so many great fights, too many to pick from, and it's always cool to talk about these things, and I can't wait for 2026, because man, the future looks quite good for kickboxing. While this year hasn't been as great as 2024, it just means that we can go up and get even better. So let me know what you guys think. So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to the Kickboxing Nerd, share the video with your friends, and I'll see you guys next time in the next video.